Welcome back, Active Word Church family. I'm so excited for this testimony. I'm here with Dr. Esther. We're going to hear her testimony, how she came to Christ, any specific events of God's power being exemplified in her life. So I am so excited about this. Dr. Esther, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
So, Dr. Esther, have you always grown up in the Christian faith?
I did grow up in a Christian family. So my mother and father are both Christian, Protestant, and so we've grown up, going to church every Sunday. My mother is definitely a woman that I look up to. She's a prayer warrior. She's definitely taught me how to pray growing up, and so all throughout my younger years, childhood and growing into becoming a young lady, I've definitely been going to church and sort of learning about God as I've grown up.
Okay, that's awesome. So where did you grow up?
So I grew up in a small country in West Africa called Burkina Faso, and so grew up there and then relocated to the U.S. About 20 years ago. So now the U.S., North Carolina particularly, is kind of like my home now because I've been here longer.
So how was it growing up in Burkina Faso?
It was a great experience, I would say. I mean, growing up, you're there. I was there with family, and I grew up. I went to school there, elementary school, and some part of middle school there, so it was a great experience. I'm the oldest of four, so I have 3 younger siblings that I enjoyed growing up with, and with my parents. There's nothing that I could say that I look back on and say that I did not like about growing up in Burkina Faso.
Okay, so what was a specific event when you started owning your own faith?
So I would say probably going into college. My faith has definitely encountered some challenges there where I really had to learn that Christ for myself, not just all throughout up until high school you go to church because your parents go to church, but really you're not plugged into really having a relationship with Christ. And in college you're sort of more independent. Your parents are not there to force you to go to church every Sunday, so you have to make that decision for yourself. So it came to a point where I really had to even with some of the classes, I took a religion class where I was learning about different religions, and you have to defend your faith, the faith in which you trust in. Who is Jesus Christ to you? What has He done for you? Why do you believe the things that you believe in? So I had to come to a point where I own those things for myself, and I could say I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. It's not about going to church or being involved in church, but it's about really walking that relationship out with Jesus Christ every day. Whether it's in my dorm room, my relationship with my roommate, in college, my relationship with other people on campus, and even beyond that with other people. So college is where I would say definitely that I became closer to God in terms of really defining my relationship as a Christian.
Okay, that's great. So, because some people, even though we're Christians, sometimes some people have like a moment they call that the Paul moment, when their eyes are opened or their eyes, God causes blindness. Would you say there's a specific event where God's power magnified itself in your life, maybe during college or any other part of your life?
I wouldn't say that I had really a specific one specific Paul moment, and like a great revelation. But I would say there probably a series of different events that took place that kind of confirmed my relationship with God, kind of showed how God revealed Himself to me. I would say definitely my journey into going to, I always loved science, in college and wanted to go to med school, but that process was very tough. And, just going through that journey, there were several times, and took a test, you don't do well, you have to repeat it. It's definitely, a struggle, and you get to a point where you feel defeated, you feel disappointed, you don't know if really it's worth it. And there are people around you that are even confirming those things, telling you that maybe you should stop right here. But, having again, those are moments where you get down on your knees, you pray, and you just ask the hand of God. And time and time again, I would see God manifest himself. So I could tell that, yes, he is there. He's the one who's pushing me, even if everyone else is kind of saying, no, you can't do it. Even if doors are closed, he's the one who would open doors. He's the one who paved the way for me to go to medical school. He's the one who paved the way for me to be able to finish medical school on time, to be able to go to residency, to be able to be a pediatrician today. So this is all, I can look back to that journey and say there's so many things, there's one specific thing that really happened, in terms of what kind of helped me to really rededicate myself to Christ and really follow him more, a lot more, was, a particular season in my life. I was in a relationship, definitely not the right one for me. At the time, we can all look back in our own lives and maybe we've had that story where, we've been in a relationship and we know it's probably not the right one, but, you are in that season and you do learn from it. So that was my season that I was in at the time. And because of that relationship, a lot of anxiety came after that. After I got out of that relationship, I almost really flunked some of my classes while I was in medical school. So God really brought me through all of that. I went through a depressive state and God really brought me through all of that. And he really helped me to be able to overcome that and to be able to thrive again, to be able to make up for those things that, to me, when I look back, were mistakes that I've made, but also maybe attempts to be able to really delay the God's plan for my life.
Awesome. I think that's a good point that you brought up, especially let's say for young ladies who are seeking higher education, to go get your doctorate, and you brought up the relationship aspect. What kind of advice would you give to young ladies who are on that pursuit of going to get their higher education, and also maybe there's also a possibility of a relationship, knowing that you have an experience with that? What kind of advice would you give to those ladies?
I would say you definitely have to make God a priority. So knowing, being very grounded in your relationship with Jesus Christ is going to be the number one thing. Because once you have that and you find your identity in Jesus Christ, you're not going to really go after anyone, and you're not going to be easily, attach yourself to anyone. So that's the number one thing that you have to really develop in your relationship with, in your life. Cultivating that relationship with Jesus Christ is going to be very important. And then as you do that, you definitely, God will bring along the way, some people that will come in your life, but they won't be the priority again. And then when they do come, you have to make sure that, their values, what they value, what they prioritize also matches with what you are prioritizing in your life, and that you guys are going in the same direction. Because if you're not going into the same direction, it's going to be hard. You're going to be pulled in different directions, and it's going to, leave some scars at times, and, just kind of damage maybe a, relationship that should have been a friendship instead, or, something like that. So I would say if you make God your priority, pray on it, and continue to just seek his guidance, he will lead you to the right person and in the right relationship, and, in a relationship that won't damage you, but that will really definitely make you a better person.
Oh, thank you. And one question, that I always thought about, is it a possibility to do at the same time, to seek a good relationship with God and also seek higher education? Because I think sometimes we tend to choose one or the other, because we think, okay, maybe I just need to focus on God and my studies, and then leave the relationships aside, or maybe I just need to focus on the relationship. How do you think that's possible, to have the best of both worlds?
So it is definitely possible to seek higher education and to be also have a relationship with God. So I think, again, for me, you have to prioritize God first. So he comes first, and in you having that foundation, you having that relationship and seeking higher education, he will be with you and guide you throughout that journey, and he will probably even bring you to even some levels that you never really really anticipated. It's not a bad thing to seek education. It's not a bad thing for you to pursue a doctorate, to you to pursue a master's, and even beyond that. So those are all good things, and education is there for a purpose. And God can use us. He makes people medical doctors, he makes people lawyers, he makes people business experts for a purpose. But if you're able to use that for His kingdom, you're able to use that in a way that God, and you can apply it in a way that He has. When He created you, He knew that you would be that physician, and He knew that He would use you to be able to come up with a medication for a cure for a certain disease or something like that. If you're able to follow God throughout that journey, you'll be able to achieve that certain goal. Otherwise, you will shortcut what God wanted to do in your life. I would say pursue higher education is great, but even beyond that, pursue God first.
And that's awesome. So how were you able to, because coming from a faith background and also having pursuing sciences, because sometimes when you go into the science field, there are a lot of people who don't believe in Christ. How were you able to manage that, knowing that you have faith in Christ, and you go into these environments where you meet maybe atheists, agnostics, and people who say that God isn't there? Mm-hmm. How were you able to manage that?
So I think you will encounter those people. It's going to be in your circle. I think it's just showing the love of Christ in everything that you do, and being able to defend your faith as the Bible asks us to do. So if you're around circles of friends, where they're atheists and other religions, it's just going to be just show love. Christ says love is above everything else. So I would say in everything that you do, just make sure that you demonstrate the love of Christ to them. And then once you do that, then that will open opportunities for conversation to be had, and for you to be able to share your faith, and for you to be able to share the reason why you have those beliefs, and the reason why you trust in God, and you're a disciple of Jesus Christ. So, and in that way, if you approach it with love, then most people will be receptive to that. But if you approach it in a defensive way, or just trying to kind of argue your faith, then that won't go far for most people. So I would say just show love, and that would open up opportunities for many conversation, for you to be able to share your faith.
That's great. Can you recall a specific event when you had to defend your faith?
I can't think of any off the top of my head. But I know, with conversation that we'll have with colleagues at work, so I know that, they would sort of mention situations that are going on in their families, or especially with what goes on with the current events in the world right now, whether with coronavirus or with the Black Lives Matter movement, or any of those things. That has brought up a lot of conversation, even at my job with colleagues, where their solution is to turn to maybe anger. It's kind of to turn into let's look for a solution in the government. So that's what they rely on, and those are all good things. Those are important things, but I always bring in the perspective of, yes, those are good things, but you still have to pray to God. You still have to involve God in there, because He's the one who can really do the greater work. Even as you are voting for the right people, or you are making your voice heard, I would say those are the ways that I would involve my voice in saying we have to still pray. We have to still bring this subject to God, and that's the way that we'll be able to make greater impact and make greater change.
Awesome. You heard it here first. Thank you, Dr. Esther, for sharing your testimony with us. And that is it, family. Join us for another testimony. And before I close, Doctor, do you have any words of wisdom that you want to share with our audience?
The word of wisdom that I would say, just going out to anyone who's still questioning their faith in Jesus Christ, or curious about Christianity, or haven't really made the step to really kind of find out more about Christianity, I would say even despite your experience with the church or with other Christians that you've come across, I would say look to the person of Jesus Christ. Try to know more about him and what he has done in this world and the things that he has accomplished. And I would say pick up a Bible, just like maybe in college you've read other books, and to learn about that, pick up a Bible and read the Bible for yourself. Try to understand Jesus Christ for yourself. Try to know him for yourself. Pray, even if you don't think that it's going far, just pray and see if God is now going to answer you, and speak to you through your prayers or through other people that it will bring around your life. That's my word of advice to everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Active Word family. We are out of here. Y'all have a blessed day.